Introduction. You've been carrying this alone for too long. Take a deep breath. Not because it will magically erase your pain, but because for the next little while, you don't have to carry everything by yourself. If you're listening to this today, there's a good chance you're tired. Not just physically tired, but emotionally exhausted. The kind of exhaustion that sleep doesn't fix. The kind that follows you into your mornings, lingers through your afternoons, and whispers to you long after everyone else has gone to bed. Maybe you've been pretending you're okay for so long that even the people closest to you believe it. You smile when you're supposed to smile. You show up for work. You take care of your family. You answer messages. You keep moving forward because that's what you've always done. But inside, something still hurts. Maybe it's the memory of words that cut deeper than anyone realized. Maybe it's the loss of someone you loved. Maybe it's a childhood that taught you to survive instead of feel safe. Maybe it's betrayal, rejection, abuse, neglect, or years of living with constant fear and anxiety. Or maybe you can't even point to one specific moment. You just know that somewhere along the way, you stopped feeling like yourself. If any of that sounds familiar, I want you to hear something that could change the way you see your life. You are not weak. You are not broken. And you are certainly not beyond healing. Trauma has a strange way of convincing us that our pain defines us. It quietly whispers lies that sound like truth. It tells us we'll never feel normal again. It makes us question our worth, our relationships, and even our future. Over time, those whispers can become so familiar that we mistake them for our own voice. But here's the truth. The fact that you're still here, still searching, still hoping for something better, tells me something important. Deep inside you, there is a part that refuses to give up. Maybe it's quiet. Maybe it's been buried under years of hurt. But it's still there. Think about a tree after a violent storm. Its branches may be broken. Its leaves may be scattered across the ground. From a distance, it can look as though it will never recover. Yet beneath the surface, its roots are still reaching into the earth, drawing strength from places no one can see. Given time, care, and the right conditions, new growth begins. Healing often looks like that. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't erase what happened. And it doesn't ask you to pretend the pain never existed. Instead, healing is the slow, courageous process of learning that your past may explain your wounds, but it does not have to control your future. This audiobook isn't about pretending life is easy. It isn't about forcing yourself to just think positive or ignoring difficult emotions. Real healing is far more honest than that. Together, we're going to explore what trauma really does to the mind and body, why anxiety can linger long after the danger has passed, and why certain memories seem impossible to let go of. More importantly, we'll talk about how healing begins, not with perfection, but with understanding. Along the way, you'll hear stories that may remind you of your own journey. You'll discover practical ways to calm your nervous system, challenge the quiet lies that trauma leaves behind, and begin rebuilding a sense of safety from the inside out. Some moments may feel emotional. Others may bring relief. You might even find yourself seeing your past through a new lens. Whatever comes up, know this: there's no right or wrong way to experience this journey. Simply listen with an open heart and take what you need. Most of all, I want you to remember one thing throughout this audiobook. Your trauma is part of your story, but it is not the whole story. The chapters ahead are not about becoming someone completely different. They're about rediscovering the person who has been there all along, beneath the fear, beneath the pain, beneath the anxiety. The person who still deserves peace. The person who still deserves joy. The person who still deserves love. So, wherever you are right now, whether you're listening on a quiet morning, during a long drive, while taking a walk, or lying awake searching for comfort, I want to thank you for being here. This is Chapter 1, Understanding the Invisible Wound. Imagine walking through life with a backpack full of rocks. At first, It isn't too heavy. You barely notice it. You keep walking because everyone else seems to be moving forward, and you don't want to fall behind. But over time, someone quietly adds another rock. Then another. And another. Before long, every step feels harder than it should. Your shoulders ache. Your back is tired. You wonder why simple things seem to drain you while everyone else appears to carry on without much effort. The truth is, they may be carrying their own backpack too. Trauma is often like that invisible weight. People can't see it, so they assume it isn't there. They see the smile on your face but not the battle in your mind. They hear your laughter but not the thoughts that keep you awake at night. They notice that you made it to work, attended the family gathering, or replied to their messages, but they don't see how much energy it took just to get through the day. That's why trauma is often called an invisible wound. Unlike a broken arm or a cut that leaves a scar, emotional pain doesn't always leave marks that others can recognize. Yet its impact can be just as real, and sometimes even more lasting. Many people think trauma only happens after terrible events like war, violent attacks, or natural disasters. Those experiences can certainly be traumatic. But trauma isn't defined only by what happened to you. It's also shaped by how your mind and body experienced what happened. Two people can live through the same event and respond in completely different ways. One may recover relatively quickly, while the other struggles for years. That doesn't mean one person is stronger than the other. It simply means our nervous systems, personalities, life experiences, and support systems are all different. Trauma isn't a competition. You don't have to earn the right to heal by proving that your pain was worse than someone else's. Maybe you grew up in a home where love was unpredictable. Some days you felt safe. Other days you walked on eggshells, never knowing what mood someone would be in. Over time, your body learned to stay alert, always scanning for danger. Maybe you were constantly criticized until you started believing you would never be good enough. Maybe someone you trusted betrayed you. Maybe you lost someone you loved, and a part of you never felt the same again. Or perhaps your childhood looked normal from the outside, yet you spent years feeling unseen, unheard, or emotionally alone. These experiences may not leave visible scars, but they can shape the way you see yourself, other people, and the world. Meet Sarah. She's 35 years old. She has a steady job, loyal friends, and a family who believes she's doing well. Most people describe her as dependent. She apologizes for things that aren't her fault. She struggles to relax, even on vacation. At night, she replays conversations from years ago, wishing she had said something differently. People tell her she's too sensitive. She secretly wonders if they're right. What Sarah doesn't realize is that her reactions aren't random. Years earlier, she grew up in a home where criticism came easily but encouragement was rare. She learned that mistakes led to shame, silence often felt safer than honesty, and love sometimes depended on performance. Her childhood ended, but her nervous system never got the message. This is one of the most important things to understand about trauma. The event may be over. The body may still believe it's happening. Your brain was created to protect you. It's constantly asking one simple question: am I safe? When something deeply painful or frightening happens, your brain remembers it because it wants to help you avoid being hurt again. That's actually a remarkable design. If you touched a hot stove once, your brain would remind you not to do it again. The problem is that emotional pain isn't always as easy to identify as a hot stove. If you were rejected, your brain may begin treating all relationships as dangerous. If you were abandoned, it may expect everyone to leave. If you were constantly criticized, it may convince you that perfection is the only way to stay safe. What began as protection slowly becomes a prison. Without realizing it, you start organizing your life around avoiding pain instead of pursuing peace. You avoid difficult conversations because conflict feels dangerous. You keep people at a distance because vulnerability feels risky. You overwork because resting makes you anxious. You try to control every detail because uncertainty feels unbearable. None of these habits mean there's something wrong with you. They mean your mind has been doing its best to protect you with the tools it learned long ago. Here's something many people never hear. Survival strategies are not character flaws. The child who learned to stay quiet wasn't weak. The teenager who hid their emotions wasn't broken. The adult who struggles to trust isn't failing. They adapted. Those adaptations helped them survive seasons they never should have had to endure. The challenge is that the strategies that once protected you can begin to limit you when the danger has passed. Imagine wearing a heavy winter coat during a snowstorm. It keeps you warm and safe. But if you continue wearing that same coat in the middle of summer, it becomes exhausting. What once protected you now weighs you down. Many trauma responses work the same way. Your brain doesn't always realize the season has changed. The encouraging news is that the brain can learn. Scientists call this neuroplasticity, which simply means your brain has the ability to form new pathways throughout your life. It can learn new patterns. It can respond differently. It can discover that what once felt dangerous is no longer a threat. Healing doesn't happen because you force yourself to forget the past. Healing happens because, little by little, your mind and body begin to recognize that the present is different from the past. That takes patience. It takes compassion. And above all, it takes understanding. As you continue listening, I don't want you to judge yourself for the ways you've coped. Instead, become curious. Ask yourself, what has my mind been trying to protect me from? What fears have quietly shaped my choices? Which parts of me have simply been trying to survive? Those questions aren't signs of weakness. They're the beginning of healing. For years, you may have believed there was something fundamentally wrong with you. Maybe today is the day you begin to consider another possibility. Maybe there was never anything wrong with who you are. Maybe you've simply been carrying invisible wounds that no one else could see. And invisible wounds deserve care just as much as visible ones. In the next chapter, we'll explore why your mind keeps replaying painful memories, why certain moments trigger intense emotions without warning, and why anxiety often lingers long after the danger has passed. Once you understand what your brain is trying to do, you'll begin to see that your greatest struggle may actually be your mind's attempt to keep you safe. And that understanding changes everything. Chapter 2. Why your mind keeps replaying the past. Have you ever asked yourself a question that seemed impossible to answer? Why can't I just move on? Maybe you've whispered those words through tears. Maybe you've said them after waking from the same nightmare for the 10th time. Maybe you've wondered why one small comment, one familiar smell, or one unexpected phone call could suddenly pull you back into emotions you thought you'd left behind years ago. If you've ever felt that way, you're not alone. And more importantly, you're not losing your mind. One of the most frustrating parts of trauma is that it doesn't always stay in the past. Sometimes it shows up in the present without warning. You could be laughing with friends, shopping for groceries, or driving home from work, and suddenly your chest tightens. Your heart races. Your thoughts begin to spiral. You don't know why, but your body reacts as if danger is standing right in front of you. It feels confusing. It feels exhausting. Sometimes it even feels embarrassing. But there's a reason it happens. Let's go back to Sarah. A few weeks after deciding she wanted to understand her anxiety, she was standing in line at a grocery store. Everything seemed perfectly normal. Soft music played through the speakers. Children laughed nearby. Someone was chatting with the cashier. Then she heard a man raise his voice. He wasn't yelling at her. In fact, he was simply speaking loudly into his phone. Within seconds, Sarah's breathing became shallow. Her hands started trembling. Her stomach tightened. She suddenly wanted to leave her cart and run out of the store. Nothing dangerous was happening. Yet her body reacted as though she were in serious trouble. Later that evening, she felt frustrated with herself. Why am I like this? She wondered. What Sarah didn't realize was that her nervous system wasn't reacting to the grocery store. It was reacting to a memory. When she was a little girl, raised voices often meant an argument was about to begin at home. Arguments often led to fear. Fear taught her body to stay alert. Years later, her adult mind knew she was standing safely in a grocery store. Her nervous system still believed she was that frightened little girl. This is what we call a trigger. Many people misunderstand triggers. They think they're signs of weakness or proof that someone is overly emotional. They're neither. A trigger is simply something that reminds your brain of a past experience, often without you even realizing the connection. It could be a sound, a smell, a song,
A plus. A certain facial expression.
even a specific time of year. The remarkable thing about the brain is that it's constantly collecting information, storing patterns, and trying to protect you from repeating painful experiences. Imagine you have a smoke alarm in your kitchen. Its job is simple: detect smoke and warn you about danger. Most of the time, it works exactly as it should. But imagine that over time, the alarm becomes overly sensitive. Now it starts blaring not only when there's a real fire but also when you burn a piece of toast or boil water too long. The alarm isn't broken. It's trying too hard to protect you. Trauma can make our nervous system behave in much the same way. The brain starts sounding the alarm even when there isn't a real threat. It's not because you're weak. It's because your internal alarm system has learned that staying on high alert feels safer than letting your guard down. The problem is that living in constant survival mode is exhausting. Have you ever noticed how difficult it is to relax? Maybe you finally sit down after a long day, but instead of feeling peaceful, your mind starts racing. Did I say the wrong thing? What if something bad happens tomorrow? Why didn't they text me back? What if I fail? What if I'm not enough? These thoughts don't appear because you're trying to think negatively. They appear because your brain believes that if it keeps scanning for problems, it can prevent future pain. It's like having an overprotective security guard who never takes a day off. Imagine hiring someone to protect your home. At first, they do an excellent job. They watch carefully, lock the doors, and keep everyone safe. But over time, they become suspicious of everything. The mail carrier? Potential threat. Your best friend? Potential threat. A cat walking across the yard? Definitely suspicious. Eventually, they stop you from enjoying your own home because they're constantly preparing for danger that never comes. That's often what anxiety feels like after trauma. Your brain hired an internal security guard to protect you. Unfortunately, that guard forgot how to recognize when it's finally safe. This can show up in ways you might not expect. Some people become perfectionists because making mistakes once led to criticism or rejection. Some become people pleasers because conflict once felt dangerous. Others withdraw from relationships because being hurt again feels unbearable. Some stay constantly busy because slowing down gives painful memories room to surface. Others become emotionally numb, not because they don't care, but because feeling everything all at once became too overwhelming. Different people develop different survival strategies. But underneath them all is the same goal. Stay safe, even if it means never truly feeling free. You may have noticed that your reactions sometimes seem much bigger than the situation itself. Perhaps someone cancels plans, and suddenly you feel abandoned. A small disagreement leaves you feeling completely rejected. Constructive criticism feels like a personal attack. These reactions can leave you asking, why did I respond so strongly? Often, it's because your brain isn't responding only to the present moment. It's responding to the emotional history attached to it. Think of it like an old song. You haven't heard it in years. Then one day it starts playing in a cafe. Within seconds, you're transported back to another season of your life. You remember where you were, who you were with, how you felt. The song didn't create the memory. It unlocked it. Triggers work in much the same way. The good news is that recognizing a trigger is not the same as being controlled by it. Awareness creates choice. When you begin to notice your triggers, something powerful happens. Instead of asking, "What's wrong with me?" you begin asking, "What is this reaction trying to tell me?" That small shift changes everything. Instead of fighting yourself, you become curious about yourself. Curiosity opens doors that shame never could. Let's return to Sarah one more time. After learning about triggers, she decided to try something different. The next time she noticed her heart racing, she didn't criticize herself. She paused. She placed one hand gently over her chest. She took a slow breath. Then she quietly said to herself, "I'm safe. This feeling is real, but it isn't danger. My body is remembering something. That doesn't mean it's happening again." Nothing magical happened in that moment. Her anxiety didn't disappear instantly. Her hands still shook a little. But something important changed. For the first time, she stopped treating herself like the enemy. Instead of adding fear to her fear, she responded with compassion. Healing often begins there. Not with dramatic breakthroughs. Not with pretending everything is fine. But with small moments of kindness toward yourself. The truth is, your mind has been working overtime for a very long time. It's been trying to protect you the best way it knows how. Now, gently and patiently, you can begin teaching it something new. You can teach it that not every disagreement leads to abandonment. Not every mistake leads to shame. Not every raised voice means danger. Not every closed door means you'll be left behind. Those lessons aren't learned in a single day. They're learned one safe experience at a time. One gentle breath at a time. One courageous step at a time. As you continue this journey, remember this. You are not trapped because your mind remembers the past. You are healing because you're learning how to live in the present. In the next chapter, we'll uncover one of trauma's quietest and most damaging effects. We'll explore the invisible beliefs that painful experiences plant deep inside us. Beliefs like "I'm not enough," "I can't trust anyone," or "I'll never change." These aren't facts. They're stories trauma teaches us to believe. And once you recognize those stories, you can begin writing a new one. Chapter 3. The Lies Trauma Quietly Teaches You. Imagine walking into a house with mirrors on every wall. At first glance, everything seems normal. But as you look closer, you realize every mirror is distorted. One makes you look smaller than you are. Another stretches your reflection until it's almost unrecognizable. Another hides parts of you completely. If you lived in that house long enough, you might eventually believe those reflections were real. Trauma works in much the same way. It doesn't just leave painful memories behind. It changes the way we see ourselves. Over time, those distorted views can become so familiar that we stop questioning them. We assume they're simply the truth. But they aren't. They're stories born from pain. And stories can be rewritten. Let's return to Sarah. A few months after she began learning about trauma, she was asked to lead a presentation at work. Her manager had complete confidence in her abilities, and her coworkers often praised her attention to detail. Yet the moment she received the assignment, a familiar thought rushed into her mind. "I'm going to mess this up." No one had criticized her. No one had doubted her. Still, her stomach tightened, and she spent the next several days replaying every possible mistake she could make. The night before the presentation, she barely slept. She imagined forgetting her words. She pictured people laughing. She convinced herself that one mistake would prove she wasn't good enough. Have you ever noticed how quickly your mind jumps to the worst possible conclusion? You forget someone's birthday, and suddenly you're convinced you're a terrible friend. You make one mistake at work, and you start wondering if you'll lose your job. Someone seems a little distant, and you immediately assume you've done something wrong. These thoughts often feel automatic. That's because they are. They're not carefully reasoned conclusions. They're deeply rooted beliefs. Trauma has a way of planting beliefs quietly. Not in a single dramatic moment, but over months or years of repeated experiences. A child who is constantly criticized may begin believing, "Nothing I do is ever good enough." A child who grows up around unpredictable anger may begin believing, "I have to keep everyone happy, or something bad will happen." Someone who experiences betrayal may begin believing, "People can't be trusted." Someone who feels abandoned may begin believing, "Everyone I love eventually leaves." Notice something important. These beliefs rarely begin with the words, "I think." Instead, they begin with, "I am." I am unlovable. I am weak. I am broken. When pain becomes personal, it starts shaping identity. That's one of trauma's greatest tricks. It convinces you that what happened to you is the same as who you are. But those are two completely different things. What happened to you is part of your story. It is not your identity. Imagine a young tree growing beside a fence. As the tree grows, the fence presses against its trunk. Year after year, the tree bends around it. Eventually, someone looking at that tree might assume it was always meant to grow that way. But it wasn't. It adapted to its environment. Many of the beliefs you carry today developed the same way. You adapted. You learned. You survived. That doesn't mean those beliefs still belong in your life. Let's look at some of the most common lies trauma teaches. The first is this: I'm not enough. This belief hides behind perfectionism. It whispers that if you work harder, achieve more, look different, or never make mistakes, you'll finally be worthy of love. But no amount of achievement can silence a belief that was never based on truth. The second lie is, I have to earn love. People who carry this belief often become exhausted. They say yes when they want to say no. They put everyone else's needs before their own. They feel guilty for resting. They believe their value comes from what they do rather than who they are. The third lie says, I can't trust anyone. Now, it's true that trust should be earned. Not everyone is safe. But trauma often paints with a brush that's too wide. Instead of saying, one person hurt me, it says, everyone will hurt me. That belief can keep you isolated long after the danger has passed. Another common lie is, my emotions are a problem. Perhaps you were told to stop crying, to toughen up, to get over it, to stay quiet. Over time, you learn to hide your feelings. But emotions aren't enemies. They're messengers. Ignoring them doesn't make them disappear. It simply makes them louder. Then there's one of the most painful lies of all. I'm broken beyond repair. If you've believed that, I want to pause here for a moment. Because this chapter may be the first time someone tells you something different. You are not broken. You are wounded. There's a difference. Imagine dropping a beautiful ceramic bowl. If it shatters, it's broken because it can no longer fulfill its purpose in the same way. Now imagine a person who has been walking for miles with a deep cut on their foot. They're injured. They may move slowly. They may need rest. They may need care. But they are still fully human. They are still capable of healing. Trauma creates wounds. It does not erase your worth. Sarah began discovering this during one of her counseling sessions. Her counselor asked her a simple question. What evidence do you have that you're not enough?
Sarah was silent.
She thought about the promotions she'd earned, the friends who trusted her, the people she'd helped, the challenges she'd overcome. None of those matched the belief she carried. For the first time, she realized something surprising. She had been treating an old feeling as though it were a present fact. Feelings matter. But feelings aren't always accurate reflections of reality. Think about standing outside on a cold morning. You might feel as though the sun will never come out. That feeling is real. But it doesn't change the fact that the sun is still there, hidden behind the clouds. In the same way, you may feel unworthy. That feeling deserves compassion. But it doesn't define your value. Healing often begins when we become willing to question the stories we've believed for years. Not with judgment. Not with shame. With curiosity. The next time you notice a harsh thought about yourself, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, who taught me this? Is this belief protecting me or limiting me? Would I say these words to someone I deeply love? Those questions create space. And in that space, truth has room to grow. Replacing old beliefs doesn't happen overnight. Your brain has repeated these stories thousands of times. It will take patience to build new ones. But every time you choose a kinder thought, every time you challenge a lie, every time you speak to yourself with compassion instead of criticism, you're laying another brick in the foundation of a healthier life. Sarah didn't wake up the next morning completely confident. She still had moments of doubt. She still caught herself apologizing too much. She still worried about disappointing people. But something had shifted. When the old voice whispered, "You're not enough," another, quieter voice began answering, "Maybe that's not true anymore." That small response didn't erase years of pain, but it cracked open a door that had been closed for a long time. And sometimes, healing begins with nothing more than a door opening a little wider. As you finish this chapter, remember this. The voice in your head is not always the voice of truth. Sometimes it's the echo of old pain. Sometimes it's fear wearing the mask of certainty. Sometimes it's trauma repeating a story that no longer belongs to your future. You have the power to listen differently. You have the courage to question those old beliefs. And little by little, you can replace them with something stronger. Not empty positive thinking, but quiet, steady truth. In the next chapter, we'll explore what it truly means to feel safe again. Not just physically, but emotionally. You'll discover why safety is the foundation of healing and learn simple, practical ways to calm your nervous system so your mind and body can begin trusting the present instead of living in the past. Chapter 4. Learning to Feel Safe Again. If I asked you a simple question right now, what does safety feel like? How would you answer? Take a moment before you respond. Not with your mind, with your body. For some people, the answer comes quickly. Safety feels like coming home after a long trip. It feels like sitting beside someone who listens without judging. It feels like laughing without wondering what people think. It feels like taking a deep breath and realizing there's nothing to fear. But for many people who have lived through trauma, that question is surprisingly difficult. They know what danger feels like. They know what anxiety feels like. They know what it means to constantly prepare for the worst. But safety feels unfamiliar. And here's something important to understand. When safety is unfamiliar, peace can actually feel uncomfortable. That may sound strange, but it's true. Imagine living beside a busy train track for 20 years. At first, every passing train startles you. The noise is impossible to ignore. But after enough time, your brain adapts. Eventually, the sound becomes normal. Then one day, the trains stop. Instead of feeling peaceful, the silence feels unsettling. You find yourself listening, waiting, wondering why everything suddenly feels different. Many people experience healing in a similar way. If your nervous system has spent years living in survival mode, calmness may initially feel unfamiliar. Not because it's dangerous, because it's different. Let's visit Sarah again. One Saturday morning, she decided to do something she hadn't done in years. Nothing. She made herself a cup of tea, opened the curtains, and sat by the window.
No television.
No phone. No work emails. No distractions. For the first few minutes, everything seemed peaceful. Then her thoughts began racing. You should be cleaning the house. You're wasting time. What if you've forgotten something important? You can't just sit here. Within 10 minutes, she felt more anxious than when she'd started. So she got up and began cleaning the kitchen. Does that sound familiar? Sometimes we're so accustomed to staying busy that stillness feels unsafe. Busyness becomes our shield. If we keep moving, we don't have to feel. If we stay productive, we don't have to slow down long enough for painful memories to catch up with us. The problem is that constant busyness may help us avoid pain, but it also prevents us from experiencing peace. Healing invites us to gently rediscover stillness. Not all at once. Little by little. One of the greatest gifts you can give your nervous system is evidence that the present is different from the past. Notice that word. Evidence. Not arguments. When you're anxious, trying to argue with yourself often doesn't work. Your body needs experiences that help it recognize safety. Think of a frightened rescue dog. When it's first brought into a loving home, it doesn't immediately trust its new family. Even if no one raises their voice. Even if food is always available. Even if everyone treats it kindly. Why? Because trust isn't built through explanations. It's built through consistent experiences. Day after day. Meal after meal. Gentle interaction after gentle interaction. Eventually, the dog begins to realize something remarkable. I'm safe now. Your nervous system learns in much the same way. Healing isn't about forcing yourself to relax. It's about creating enough safe moments that your body slowly begins to believe them. So where do we begin? We begin with the breath. You breathe every moment of every day, often without noticing it. But when anxiety takes over, breathing usually changes. It becomes shallow, fast, tight. Your body interprets that breathing pattern as another sign that danger is near. The wonderful thing is that breathing works both ways. Just as fear changes your breathing, intentional breathing can gently influence your nervous system. Right now, if it's safe for you to do so, try this. Take a slow breath in through your nose. Don't rush it. Hold it gently for a moment. Then slowly breathe out through your mouth, letting your shoulders soften as you exhale. Again. Slowly in. Slowly out. Notice that we're not trying to force calm. We're simply giving your body new information. We're okay. This moment is safe. One breath won't erase years of anxiety. But one breath becomes another. Then another. And eventually those small moments begin adding up. Another powerful way to rebuild safety is something called grounding. Grounding simply means bringing your attention back to the present moment instead of getting lost in frightening memories or imagined futures. Here's an easy exercise. Look around the room you're in. Notice 5 things you can see. Maybe it's a window, a lamp, a tree outside, the color of the wall, a favorite chair. Now notice 4 things you can physically feel. Perhaps your feet touching the floor, your clothing against your skin, the chair supporting your body, the cool air on your face. Now listen for 3 sounds. Maybe you hear birds, a fan, traffic outside, or simply the sound of your own breathing. This simple practice reminds your brain that you're here, not back there. Here. In this moment. safe enough to notice what's around you. Sarah began using grounding every time her anxiety started rising. At first, she felt a little silly. How could naming objects in a room possibly help years of emotional pain? But she stayed with it. Over time, she noticed something unexpected. Her panic attacks became shorter. Her breathing settled more quickly. She recovered faster after stressful moments. The circumstances hadn't changed, but her relationship with those moments had. Healing often works quietly. You don't always notice it while it's happening. Then one day, you realize something that once overwhelmed you now feels manageable. Another important part of feeling safe is learning to speak to yourself differently. Think about the voice you hear most often. It's probably your own. What does it sound like? Is it patient? Or constantly critical? Does it encourage you? Or does it remind you of every mistake you've ever made? Many of us unknowingly carry the voices of people who wounded us. The harsh parent, the cruel teacher, the controlling partner, the bully. Their words become our inner dialogue. But here's the beautiful truth. That voice can change. Imagine speaking to yourself the way you would speak to a frightened child. Would you shout, "What's wrong with you?" Of course not. You'd probably kneel beside them and say, "It's okay. I'm here. You're safe. We'll get through this together." What if you offered yourself that same kindness? Not because you've earned it, because you need it. Self-compassion isn't self-indulgence. It's emotional first aid. It's choosing care instead of criticism. It's understanding that healing grows best in an atmosphere of kindness, not shame. Safety also grows through healthy boundaries. For years, Sarah believed saying no made her selfish. She agreed to extra work even when she was exhausted. She answered calls late at night because she didn't want to disappoint anyone. She ignored her own needs because she believed everyone else's mattered more. Eventually, she realized something important. Every time she abandoned herself to keep someone else comfortable, her anxiety grew stronger. So she practiced one small sentence. "I'm sorry, but I can't commit to that right now." The first time she said it, her heart pounded. She expected people to become angry. Some were disappointed. Most simply said, "I understand." She discovered that healthy people respected boundaries far more than she had imagined. Each boundary became another reminder. My needs matter too. As the weeks passed, Sarah noticed subtle changes. She slept a little better. She smiled more easily. She no longer apologized every few minutes. She even found herself sitting quietly by the window again. This time, she stayed. The thoughts still came, but they weren't as loud. The silence no longer felt like an enemy. It began feeling like a friend. That's what healing often looks like. Not dramatic transformation. Not waking up one morning completely free from anxiety. But noticing that the storm inside you is becoming less intense. That you recover more quickly. That you trust yourself a little more. That hope feels just a little easier to believe. Before we finish this chapter, I want to leave you with one thought. You don't have to convince your nervous system that the world is perfectly safe. Because it isn't. Life will always include uncertainty. What you can teach your nervous system is something even more powerful. You can teach it that you are becoming a safe place for yourself. That no matter what life brings, you'll respond with patience instead of panic. With compassion instead of criticism. With courage instead of shame. And that's where lasting healing begins. In the next chapter, we'll explore one of the most misunderstood parts of trauma recovery. Letting go. We'll discover why healing doesn't require you to erase the past, why forgiveness is often misunderstood, and how you can release the grip of painful memories without pretending they never happened. Chapter 5. Letting Go Without Forgetting. There are few phrases more frustrating to someone carrying emotional pain than these 3 words. Just let it go. People often say them with good intentions. They want to help. They want to see you happy again. But if healing were as simple as deciding to let go, you would have done it a long time ago. No one chooses to carry pain. No one wakes up and says, I hope today I spend hours replaying painful memories. The truth is, if you're still holding on to something, it's usually because a part of you believes it still serves a purpose. Maybe it protects you. Maybe it reminds you to never trust too easily again. Maybe it convinces you that if you keep replaying the past, you'll somehow prevent it from happening in the future. Your mind isn't trying to punish you. It's trying to protect you. But protection and healing are not always the same thing. Imagine you're walking through a forest after a powerful storm. Branches are scattered across the path. Some are small enough to step over. Others are so large that they block the trail completely. You could spend years standing there, staring at the fallen tree, wishing it had never fallen. Or you could slowly begin clearing a path around it. Notice something important. The tree is still there. You didn't erase it. You didn't pretend the storm never happened. You simply refused to let it stop your journey forever. That's what healing looks like. Healing isn't forgetting. Healing is learning how to move forward while carrying the wisdom instead of the weight. Let's spend a moment with Sarah again. One rainy afternoon, she found an old box while cleaning out a closet. Inside were photographs, handwritten letters, and a faded birthday card from her father. Her hands trembled as she picked it up. Her father had been unpredictable throughout her childhood. Some days he was warm and loving. Other days his anger filled the entire house. Even years after leaving home, Sarah found herself longing for the father she wished she had instead of accepting the one she actually had. As she looked through the photographs, tears quietly rolled down her face. Not because she hated him. Not because she wanted revenge. But because she was grieving something she had never truly allowed herself to mourn. The childhood she deserved. The safety she never experienced. The words she never heard. Sometimes we think we're grieving people. In reality, we're grieving possibilities. The birthday that should have been celebrated. The apology that never came. The relationship that never became healthy. The dreams that were quietly stolen. Grief is love searching for a place to go. When we refuse to acknowledge it, it often settles inside us as sadness, anger, anxiety, or emotional numbness. One of the greatest gifts you can give yourself is permission to grieve honestly. Not dramatically. Not endlessly. Honestly. It's okay to admit that something hurt. It's okay to say, I wish things had been different. Healing doesn't require pretending everything worked out perfectly. It asks only that you tell yourself the truth. There is another word that often appears whenever people talk about healing. Forgiveness. For some listeners, just hearing that word may cause your heart to tighten. Perhaps someone once told you that forgiving meant pretending the abuse didn't happen. Or that forgiving meant welcoming someone back into your life. Or that forgiving meant excusing cruel behavior. If that's what you've believed, I'd like to gently offer another perspective. Forgiveness is not saying that what happened was acceptable. It is not denying your pain. It is not removing healthy boundaries. And it certainly is not giving someone another opportunity to hurt you. Forgiveness is releasing your hope that the past can somehow be changed. Think about that for a moment. Every painful memory carries an invisible wish. I wish they had loved me differently. I wish they had protected me. I wish they had apologized. I wish none of it had happened. Those wishes are deeply human. But no amount of replaying the past can rewrite it. Holding on doesn't change yesterday. It only steals from today. Imagine carrying a heavy suitcase everywhere you go. At first, you don't notice how much it weighs. You've carried it for so long that it simply feels normal. Then someone asks, "Why don't you set it down for a while?" You reply, "But this suitcase contains everything that happened to me." They gently smile and say, "It always will." The question isn't whether the suitcase exists. The question is whether you have to carry it every moment of your life. That's the invitation healing offers. Not denial. Not forgetting. Relief. Sarah struggled with forgiveness for months. She believed that if she forgave her father, she would somehow be saying his behavior was acceptable. Her counselor asked her a question she never forgot. Who continues to suffer every time you replay the past? Sarah was quiet. The answer was obvious. She did. Her father wasn't reliving those memories every day. She was. Forgiveness wasn't something she chose because he deserved it. She chose it because she deserved peace. That didn't happen overnight. Some days she felt free. Other days old anger returned. Healing rarely moves in a straight line. It's more like walking along the shoreline. Sometimes the tide comes in and covers your footprints. Other times the sand is clear, and you can see just how far you've come. Both are part of the journey. Another part of letting go is releasing shame. Shame is different from guilt. Guilt says, "I made a mistake." Shame says, "I am the mistake." Can you hear the difference? One focuses on behavior. The other attacks identity. Trauma often leaves people carrying shame that never belonged to them. Children blame themselves for parents' divorce. Survivors blame themselves for abuse. People blame themselves for trusting the wrong person, for not leaving sooner, for not seeing the warning signs, for freezing instead of fighting back. If that's part of your story, I want you to hear this clearly. You cannot judge your past self using the knowledge you have today. The version of you who lived through those moments did the best they could with what they knew, what they had, and the strength they possessed at the time. Instead of criticizing that younger version of yourself, what if you thanked them? Thank them for surviving. Thank them for getting you here. Thank them for refusing to give up. Imagine meeting your younger self face to face. Maybe they're 10 years old. Maybe they're 16. Maybe they're 25. Look into their eyes. Would you blame them for everything that happened? Or would you wrap your arms around them and say, "You didn't deserve this. I'm here now. You don't have to carry it alone anymore." That is what self-compassion looks like. It's becoming the caring adult your younger self needed. As Sarah continued her healing journey, she started a simple evening ritual. Every night before bed, she wrote down one thing she was ready to release. Some nights she wrote, "Today, I release the need to be perfect." Other nights, "Today, I release the belief that everyone will leave me." Sometimes, "Today, I release the guilt I've carried for things that were never my responsibility." She didn't always believe those words immediately, but writing them reminded her that healing is a choice repeated many times, not a single decision made once. Months later, she realized something remarkable. The memories hadn't disappeared. She still remembered the arguments, the fear, the loneliness. But when she thought about them, they no longer controlled her breathing. They no longer ruined her entire day. The memories remained. The chains did not. That's the difference between remembering and reliving. One teaches, the other traps. As this chapter comes to a close, I want to leave you with a gentle invitation. Think of one burden you've been carrying for years. Not because you wanted to, because you believed you had to. Now ask yourself, what would my life look like if I carried this with open hands instead of clenched fists? You don't have to answer today. You don't have to force anything. Just allow the question to stay with you. Sometimes healing begins with a single question that quietly changes the direction of your heart. Remember this. You are allowed to honor your past without living inside it. You are allowed to remember without remaining trapped. You are allowed to let go, not because what happened was small, but because your future is too valuable to be held hostage by yesterday. In the next chapter, we'll shift our focus from releasing the past to intentionally rebuilding your future. You'll discover how small daily choices shape lasting healing, why progress is often quieter than we expect, and how simple habits can gradually restore confidence, peace, and a renewed sense of purpose. Because recovery isn't built in one extraordinary moment. It's built one ordinary day at a time. Chapter 6. Rebuilding your life one small choice at a time. If you've ever watched a sunrise, you know something beautiful about it. The world doesn't suddenly go from darkness to daylight. At first, there's only the faintest hint of light on the horizon. So faint that you could miss it if you weren't paying attention. Then, little by little, the sky begins to change. The shadows soften.
Calor se emerge.
Before long, what once seemed impossible becomes undeniable. Morning has arrived. Healing often unfolds the same way. Many people begin their recovery expecting one dramatic breakthrough. They hope for the day they wake up and every painful memory has disappeared, every anxious thought is gone, and every fear has vanished. While those moments of breakthrough can happen, lasting healing is usually much quieter. It's built through ordinary choices repeated consistently. One healthy decision. One honest conversation. One peaceful morning. One boundary. One act of self-compassion. None of those moments seem extraordinary on their own. Together, they transform a life. Sarah didn't notice the changes at first. She was still attending counseling. She still had difficult days. There were mornings when anxiety greeted her before she even got out of bed. But something was different. Instead of believing that a hard day meant she had failed, she started seeing it as just that, a hard day. Not a ruined life. Not proof that healing wasn't working. Just one difficult chapter in a much larger story. That shift alone gave her room to breathe. One afternoon, while walking through a local park, Sarah passed a man planting a small tree. Curious, she stopped to watch. The tree looked fragile. Its trunk was thin, its branches were few, and it leaned slightly in the breeze. She smiled and asked, "How long before it becomes a big tree?" The man laughed gently. "Years," he replied. Then he added something she never forgot. "But if I don't plant it today, it will never grow tomorrow." Those words stayed with her. Healing works exactly the same way. Many of us delay the small steps because they don't seem significant enough. We tell ourselves, "I'll start taking care of myself when I feel better. I'll set boundaries after I'm stronger. I'll begin exercising next month. I'll practice gratitude when life improves." But healing doesn't usually begin after you feel better. Healing often helps you feel better because you begin. Small choices create new pathways. Let's talk about habits. Not the kind that promise to change your life in 7 days. The quiet habits that gently teach your nervous system a new way of living. One of the first habits Sarah developed was a simple morning routine. Before checking her phone, she sat quietly with a cup of tea. She took 5 slow breaths. She asked herself one question. What do I need today? Not, what does everyone else need? Not, how can I make everyone happy? Just, what do I need today? Some mornings the answer was rest. Other mornings it was courage. Sometimes she needed to call a friend. Sometimes she needed to take a walk. Sometimes she simply needed permission to have an imperfect day. For years, she had ignored her own needs. Now she was learning to listen. Another habit that changed her life was movement. Notice I didn't say intense workouts. Healing isn't about punishing your body. It's about reconnecting with it. Trauma often causes us to disconnect from ourselves. We live inside our thoughts while ignoring the signals our bodies are sending. A slow walk, gentle stretching, dancing to your favorite song in your living room, gardening, even standing outside and feeling the warmth of the morning sun on your face. These simple moments remind your body that life is more than survival. They remind you that you're alive. Nutrition and sleep matter too. Not because they solve every emotional struggle, but because an exhausted mind has a much harder time processing stress. Think about the last time you were extremely tired. Small problems probably felt much bigger than they actually were. That's because your brain needs rest just as much as your body does. Healing isn't selfish. It's maintenance. Just as a car needs fuel, oil changes, and regular care to keep running well, your mind and body need consistent attention. Ignoring those needs doesn't make you stronger. It simply makes the journey harder. One area where Sarah struggled most was relationships. For years she believed love meant constantly proving her worth. She answered every message immediately. She canceled her own plans whenever someone needed her. She rarely disagreed with anyone. She confused people-pleasing with kindness. One evening, while talking with a close friend, she apologized 3 times in less than 5 minutes. Finally, her friend smiled and asked, "Why do you keep apologizing?" Sarah froze. She hadn't even noticed she was doing it. That question stayed with her. Over the following weeks, she began paying attention to how often she apologized unnecessarily. "I'm sorry for bothering you. I'm sorry for asking. I'm sorry for taking your time." Eventually she realized something. She had spent years apologizing for existing. Perhaps you've done that too. Healing invites us to replace unnecessary apologies with confidence. Instead of saying, "I'm sorry for asking," you can say, "Thank you for taking the time to listen." Instead of, "I'm sorry I'm not perfect," you can remind yourself, "I'm learning, just like everyone else." These may seem like small changes, but words shape beliefs, and beliefs shape lives. Another essential part of rebuilding your life is choosing the people who walk beside you. Not everyone will understand your healing journey. Some people become uncomfortable when you stop accepting unhealthy treatment. Others may resist your new boundaries because they benefited from your old ones. That's painful. But remember this. The people who truly care about you may need time to adjust. Healthy relationships grow stronger through honesty. Unhealthy ones often struggle when control disappears. You cannot heal while constantly shrinking yourself to fit someone else's expectations. As Sarah became healthier, something unexpected happened. A few relationships faded. At first, she felt guilty. Then she realized those relationships had survived only because she ignored her own needs. At the same time, other relationships became deeper than ever. For the first time, she felt accepted for who she truly was, not just for what she could do for others. Healing doesn't just change you. It changes the way you connect with the world. One of the most powerful habits Sarah developed was celebrating small victories. Not because every day was perfect, because every step mattered. She celebrated going an entire day without criticizing herself. She celebrated saying no without feeling guilty. She celebrated asking for help. She celebrated sleeping peacefully through the night. She celebrated laughing without immediately wondering when something bad would happen. These moments were easy to overlook, but together they became proof that healing was happening. Imagine climbing a mountain. If you spend the entire journey staring only at the distant peak, you'll constantly feel discouraged. You'll keep thinking, "I'm not there yet." But if you occasionally turn around and look at how far you've already climbed, you'll discover something encouraging. You've made more progress than you realized. Take a moment right now. Think about yourself 6 months ago, or a year ago, Or 5 years ago? Are there ways you've grown? Maybe you recover from setbacks more quickly. Maybe you're more aware of your emotions. Maybe you've learned to ask for help. Maybe you've stopped blaming yourself for everything. Maybe you're simply still here. Never underestimate the courage it takes to keep going, especially when no one else sees the battle you're fighting. Progress isn't always loud. Sometimes progress is getting out of bed when yesterday you couldn't. Sometimes it's choosing not to send that angry message. Sometimes it's taking one deep breath instead of giving in to panic. Sometimes it's believing, for just a moment, that tomorrow might be a little brighter. Those moments matter more than you know. As the months passed, Sarah realized something remarkable. She no longer asked, "When will I finally be healed?" Instead, she began asking, "How can I keep growing?" That question changed everything. Healing had stopped being a destination. It had become a way of living, a way of treating herself, a way of meeting life's challenges with courage instead of fear, a way of believing that every new day offered another opportunity to choose hope. As this chapter comes to an end, I'd like to leave you with a simple thought. You don't build a meaningful life through one extraordinary decision. You build it through thousands of ordinary ones. The cup of water you choose instead of another excuse. The walk you take even when you don't feel like it. The boundary you set. The kind word you speak to yourself. The quiet prayer. The honest conversation. The decision to begin again after a difficult day. These are the bricks that build a healed life. One by one. Day by day. Choice by choice. In our final chapter, we'll explore something many people never expect after trauma. The possibility of becoming stronger, wiser, and more compassionate because of what you've survived. We'll talk about finding purpose beyond pain, embracing a future filled with hope, and discovering that trauma may have shaped part of your story, but it never had the power to write the ending. Chapter 7. Becoming the person trauma could never destroy. If someone had met Sarah on the day she began this journey and then met her again 2 years later, they might not have noticed anything dramatic at first. She looked much the same. She still laughed at the same jokes. She still enjoyed quiet mornings with a cup of tea. She still had difficult days. She still felt anxious from time to time. But the person inside had changed. Not because life had become easier. Because she had become stronger. That's one of the greatest misunderstandings about healing. Many people believe recovery means you'll never feel afraid again. That you'll never cry. That painful memories will disappear forever. But healing isn't the absence of difficult emotions. It's the freedom to experience them without being controlled by them. Think about the ocean. Even on the calmest days, waves still rise and fall. The goal isn't to stop the waves. The goal is to become a stronger sailor. Trauma often convinces us that our future will always look like our past. It whispers, "Nothing will ever change. You'll always be anxious. You'll never trust again. You're too damaged to live a happy life." Those whispers may sound convincing, but they are not prophecies. They are echoes. And echoes grow quieter the farther you walk away from them. Sarah discovered this one ordinary afternoon. She was standing in line at another grocery store. A man nearby suddenly raised his voice while talking on his phone. 2 years earlier, that sound would have sent her heart racing. She would have abandoned her shopping cart and hurried outside. This time, something different happened. She noticed her body tense for a moment. She took one slow breath. She looked around the store. Children were laughing. An employee was stocking shelves. The cashier smiled at the customer in front of her. Then she quietly reminded herself, "I'm here. I'm safe." That was then. This is now. The fear didn't disappear instantly. But it passed. Within moments, her shoulders relaxed. She finished her shopping and drove home. It wasn't a dramatic victory. No one applauded. No one even noticed. But Sarah noticed. And sometimes the quiet victories are the ones that change your life the most. Healing often arrives so gently that you don't recognize it until you look back. One day you realize you laughed without forcing it. You slept through the night. You said no without feeling guilty. You trusted someone enough to share your heart. You looked in the mirror without criticizing yourself. Those moments aren't small. They're milestones. Every one of them is evidence that your life is becoming larger than your pain. Perhaps the most beautiful part of healing is that it often gives you something you never expected. Compassion. People who have walked through deep valleys often become the ones who notice when someone else is struggling. They understand silent battles. They recognize hidden pain. They know the courage it takes just to keep going. Your wounds can become places where empathy grows. Not because suffering is good, but because healing teaches lessons comfort never could. Think about the Japanese art of repairing broken pottery with gold. Instead of hiding the cracks, the artist fills them with precious metal. The bowl is not valuable because it was broken. It becomes beautiful because it was lovingly restored. Your life is much the same. Your scars are not proof that you failed. They are evidence that you survived. They tell a story of courage, a story of endurance, a story of hope. There may come a day when someone crosses your path carrying the same fears you once carried. They'll wonder if life can ever feel peaceful again. They'll believe no one understands. And without even realizing it, you'll become living proof that healing is possible. Not because you'll have all the answers, but because your life will quietly say, "I've been where you are. Keep going. Don't give up." That may become one of the greatest purposes your pain ever serves. Not to define you, but to deepen your compassion for others. As Sarah continued rebuilding her life, she noticed another change. She stopped asking, "Why did this happen to me?" Instead, she began asking, "How do I want to live today?" Do you hear the difference? The first question keeps your attention fixed on a past you cannot change. The second invites you into a future you can help create. This doesn't mean you'll never think about the past. It means the past no longer gets to make every decision for you. You begin choosing your responses instead of reacting automatically. You begin trusting yourself again. You begin believing that joy isn't something reserved for other people. It's something you're allowed to experience too. There will still be difficult seasons. Life will still surprise you. People may still disappoint you. Loss will still find its way into every human story. Healing doesn't remove those realities. It prepares you to meet them with resilience instead of hopelessness. Think back to the tree we talked about earlier. The one that stood through the storm. It didn't survive because the wind stopped blowing. It survived because its roots grew deeper. That's what you've been doing throughout this journey. You've been growing roots. Roots of understanding. Roots of self-compassion. Roots of courage. Roots of hope. Storms may still come. But you are no longer facing them as the person you once were. You've learned to breathe. You've learned to pause. You've learned to question the lies trauma taught you. You've learned to create safety within yourself. You've learned that healing is built through small, faithful choices. Most importantly, you've learned that your worth was never determined by what happened to you. Before we close this chapter, I want to speak directly to the part of you that still wonders whether complete healing is really possible. Maybe you're thinking, what if I take 2 steps forward and 1 step back? You probably will. Everyone does. Healing isn't a straight road. It's a winding path. Some days you'll feel strong. Other days you'll feel tired. Neither day defines you. What matters is that you keep walking. Keep choosing kindness over criticism. Keep choosing hope over despair. Keep choosing truth over the lies that once held you captive. And when you stumble, and you will, remember this. Progress isn't measured by never falling. It's measured by your willingness to rise again. As we prepare to bring this audiobook to a close, I want you to remember one simple truth. Trauma may have influenced your story. It may have shaped some of your chapters. It may have left scars that you'll always carry. But it never held the pen. You do. Beginning today, you have the opportunity to write new chapters. Chapters filled with peace instead of panic. Trust instead of fear. Purpose instead of pain. Joy instead of shame. Not because the past disappeared, but because you discovered that your future is stronger than your past. And that is something trauma can never take away from you. Conclusion. Your healing journey starts today. As we come to the end of this audiobook, I want you to take one more slow, deep breath. Notice where you are right now. Maybe you're sitting in your favorite chair. Maybe you're driving home. Maybe you're taking a quiet walk, or perhaps you're listening late at night when the world around you has finally grown still. Wherever you are, I'm grateful you chose to spend this time with me. Over the last few chapters, we've walked through some deeply personal places together. We've talked about the invisible wounds trauma leaves behind. We've explored why your mind keeps replaying painful memories, even when you desperately want to move on. We've uncovered the quiet lies that trauma teaches, lies about your worth, your value, and your future. We've learned how to create safety within ourselves, how to release the weight of the past without pretending it never happened, and how small, consistent choices can slowly rebuild a life filled with peace and purpose. Most importantly, I hope you've discovered one truth that I want you to carry with you long after this audiobook ends. You are not defined by what happened to you. Your pain is real. Your story matters. Your tears matter. Your struggles matter. But they do not have the final word. There may be days when healing feels slow. Days when old memories resurface. Days when anxiety knocks on your door again. When those moments come, don't mistake them for failure. Healing isn't about never struggling again. It's about responding to those struggles with greater wisdom, greater compassion, and greater hope than you had before. Remember the sunrise we talked about. The light doesn't appear all at once. It arrives gradually, quietly, almost unnoticed. Then one day, you realize the darkness has given way to morning. That's how healing often happens. One breath. One conversation. One boundary. One act of self-kindness. One decision to begin again. Never underestimate the power of those small steps. They may not feel life-changing today, but over weeks, months, and years, they become the foundation of a completely different life. As you move forward, be patient with yourself. Celebrate your progress, no matter how small it seems. Speak to yourself with the same kindness you would offer someone you deeply love. Protect your peace. Ask for help when you need it. And never forget that strength isn't found in pretending you're okay. Strength is found in having the courage to heal. If this audiobook has encouraged you, comforted you, or helped you see your journey in a new light, I have one small favor to ask. Please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment sharing what resonated with you the most, and subscribe to the channel. Your support does more than help this channel grow. It helps these messages reach someone else who may be lying awake tonight, wondering if anyone understands what they are going through. By sharing this audiobook, you may become part of someone else's healing story. And that's a beautiful gift. Finally, I'd like to leave you with these words. You have survived every difficult day that brought you here. You have made it through storms that once felt impossible. You are stronger than fear. You are worthy of love. You are worthy of peace. You are worthy of a future that isn't controlled by yesterday. This is not the end of your story. It's the beginning of a new chapter. A chapter filled with healing, growth, hope, and the quiet confidence that, no matter what lies ahead, you have everything you need to keep moving forward. Thank you for listening. Take care of yourself. Be gentle with your heart. And remember, your greatest days are not behind you. They're waiting for you, one courageous step at a time.